So this one obviously has been circling around the NBA for a couple of weeks now. Obviously, it centers around the Milwaukee Bucks. We never got a chance to touch on this, but it's sort of come back into relevancy again with Giannis posting on Instagram a couple of days ago saying he's tired of the disrespect. I'm coming. So obviously we know the background with how the Bucks got eliminated to the Miami Heat. Giannis's health was put into question. Obviously when he came back he didn't look 100%, and obviously Mike Budenholzer made some questionable calls at the end of the game of that elimination game, game 5, and Grayson Allen didn't get a shot off. Euro stepped into the lane and the time ran out, and basically that's how their season ended. So it was a very unfortunate way for their season to end, and a lot of things didn't go their way for the Milwaukee Bucks. And then we obviously found out that Mike Budenholzer's brother had passed away just a week before that series, so obviously his whole mind was clouded by that. And I don't actually know if it was a week before the series or it would have happened sometime during the series anyway, but his mind would have been clouded with all of that stuff as well, and he's eventually been fired now. But you can argue the case that he maybe would have been fired 2 years ago had they not won that championship, had Giannis not come back from that hyperextended knee and dropped 50 to save their season and eventually win them the title. But I'd like to hear your thoughts on this and what you make of where the Milwaukee Bucks currently stand. I'll chime in after, but where they stand at the moment, and I guess what their moves for the off-season would be, both regarding a coach and just overall roster shake-up.
Yeah, so was it wrong by the Bucks, or was it needed because of those questionable decisions in Game 6? I think Mike Budenholzer, I don't know, he was a bit stiff, but then at the same time, it's like, it's a series they definitely should have won. Miami just snuck in the play-in. Bucks people, a lot of people had them winning the chip. So, yeah, I mean, was it valid? I think it was. In terms of coaching targets for the Bucks, I think obviously Nick Nurse priority 1. I think Ty Lue, we've heard the mutters that this season that like maybe the Clippers isn't it, and maybe he would move on and coach somewhere else, because like he had championship expectations for this team. But if Paul George and Kawhi aren't playing, it's like, how can you possibly coach the team when it's just a bunch of dudes, and it's kind of like you're selling yourself short almost by coaching them. Kenny Atkinson's another target who's a great coach, and then 2 others, just some names you could put out, I guess. I don't think they're likely targets, but Frank Vogel, depends how much you rate him. A lot of people don't, a lot of people do. And then I can't list coaches without naming Mark Jackson. I think it's long overdue. I don't think he'll coach the Bucks, but hoping he gets another shot in the NBA to coach. But in terms of the Bucks as an organization, I think they really got to consider what's next for Chris Middleton. Now he isn't that all-star caliber player. Is he a potential trade target? And what can you even actually get back for Chris Middleton? Like, is it a guy like a Kristaps Porzingis or a Kyle Kuzma from your team, or is it a young asset like a DeAndre Hunter and John Collins or something like that? I really don't know what his worth is anymore, but I think this Bucks team's getting awfully old, and it's really about who stays and who goes. Like, when you take a look, I'll just list out some names in this Bucks team. You got Chris Middleton, 31, Wesley Matthews, 36, Brook Lopez is 35, Joe Ingles is 35, Drew Holiday's getting old at 32, Dragic is 37, probably on his way out. They gave up a lot to get Jay Crowder, and he's probably not going to be there, and he didn't play for them in the playoffs. He's 32, so yeah. And then even Giannis' brother, he's 30, and I know he doesn't play, but there's really not a lot of young assets that they do have to develop besides Marjon Beauchamp. And yeah, he has upside, but it's no certain thing that he becomes a very solid NBA player. So yeah, I think the longer they don't make a move, the more likely it is that Giannis would potentially leave him, which is really weird to say because it just sounds like he should be a a one-team player.
Buck for life.
Yeah, buck for life. But yeah, I'll read out to you this quote that I think was either from early this season or late last season. But Giannis spoke on his long-term home at Milwaukee, but it was kind of like, I'll just read it out. So he said, "I think anybody you ask that question that plays basketball, if he said no, he'd be a liar. It's a team that won multiple championships. It's a team with some of the greatest players, if not the greatest player to ever play this game, but it's a no-brainer. Everybody would love to play for Chicago down the line. You never know. You never know how life brings it. Maybe I'll play for Chicago, but right now I'm committed to Milwaukee." So, hey, if they don't make moves and things go south and they get worse from here, maybe we could see Giannis in a Chicago Bulls jersey one day, or perhaps somewhere else.
Yeah, it's one of those big question marks, I think, with the way this roster is constructed. And like you mentioned, the question marks around Chris Middleton. He was an all-star once upon a time and a really highly valued player, but came off an injury-riddled season. That trio of Holiday, Middleton, and Giannis didn't really play much basketball together this year. And again, there's questions to be asked of how much longevity that whole trio can have together on the court. Obviously, Drew Holiday had a productive season, made an all-star team, and was an all-defensive caliber player. But the question mark will be around Chris Middleton because his player option's about $40 million coming up this year. And besides like young guys like you mentioned, obviously you have Marjon Beauchamp, and you've got Grayson Allen, who's still relatively young, and Bobby Portis. So you've still got a Pat Connaughton, but they're not really, like I said, besides Portis and Allen still have some value, but Pat Connaughton, he's just a role player. And yeah, they're not young anymore. And Giannis, I think the way he is as a player, he's helped the Milwaukee Bucks win the championship, which was his aspiration while he was with the organization. He said, "I want to bring a championship to this city." He's done that now. And, could he be on his way out soon? That could be a genuine option for him. And, there's the possibility, like you mentioned, you read that quote out with the Bulls. I wouldn't rule that out. Or even going to the New York Knicks, being a part of a big market team.
It'd be crazy, man.
Especially, I think that's something that the Knicks would definitely could use. Obviously, any team could use Giannis, but, having a guy like Giannis on the Knicks would just elevate them further and really get them over the hump. They probably could arguably make them championship contenders from the jump. And I guess a spot where it could be like this was probably a tough landing spot for him, but I think if they can pair up him and Luka in Dallas, that would be must-see TV every single night. So
I like that.
I'd love to see him in Dallas personally.
Yeah.
But I do also have a soft spot for players staying with their original team, like guys like Damian Lillard, respected, especially in a small market like Milwaukee. For a guy like Giannis to be there as long as he has, and to continue to repay the faith for the opportunity that they did provide him when he first got drafted into the league. I think those kind of guys, it's just a rare commodity in today's NBA. Not like back in the day when Dirk played his whole career with the Mavericks, or you've got Kobe playing with the one franchise. It just, like I said, it's a very rare occurrence now, and you kind of feel bad for them being in situations which aren't catered for their particular demands or needs in terms of wanting to win a title, and especially if they decide to rebuild. I don't think Giannis would be wanting to be in that position to start from scratch again, because he's already done that pretty much. He's seen the worst of that Milwaukee Bucks team, and obviously he's brought them to the highest of highs. So it'll be interesting how they attack this off-season. I think the coach will have a massive part in, or the decision that who they decide to select as coach, I should say, will have a massive part of how their season goes next year. And obviously, if you get a guy like Nick Nurse and replace him replace Mike Budenholzer with a guy like Nick Nurse, I should say, you're getting, I guess you're not really losing out, because you got a championship winning coach replacing one for another. So I think that would definitely help them. And Nick Nurse's mentality and attitude and mindset, and he's got a really good basketball mind. I think that'll help this team, but they just need to work out, like I said, like you said, with those 30-plus-year-old guys that they have on their roster.
Yeah.
What do they decide to do with them? And it's tough because now I think they're already over or close to the luxury tax line. They're $20 million above the salary cap on the new CBA. So it's going to be very tough how they restructure things, but fingers crossed for them, and hopefully they can sort things out, and I'm sure they will. They've got a great front office who've made really good decisions in the past, but obviously some questionable ones over this last couple of months. But we'll just have to see what happens in the off season, and I guess we'll touch base on it then. And when they do announce a coach and whatever they decide to do with their roster, we'll obviously analyse that further as the months progress.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you have Giannis, you're any chance, so they could bounce back next season. We're not ruling it out completely, but I would say it's looking more and more likely that the decline of Middleton and Lopez, he'll be 36, I think, next season. You would assume that things might go downhill, but it'll be interesting if they do anything this off season, because I think it's going to be difficult for them to make a move, but at the same time it's kind of necessary, especially if you're thinking about, from Giannis's perspective, would he want this team to, would he want the Bucks to kind of make a move, or would he be kind of unwilling to trade for the Bucks to trade his co-partner in Chris Middleton for such a long time? Does he still think that this team could contend for championships next season? We're yet to find out, but it's definitely one of the most intriguing topics surrounding the NBA, especially going into next off season.